Love will either build you or break you. Sometimes it does both. It was supposed to be the happiest day of his life until she walked in. His name was Marcus Reed, young, ambitious, and handsome, with his whole future ahead of him. And caught between them were two women who loved him in very different ways. One woman wore a wedding dress. The other carried a gun. But how did it come to this? How does a relationship that began with trust, care, and second chances end with a bullet? Before the headlines, before the courtroom, before the heartbreak, there was Celeste Johnson, 66 years old, respected, soft-spoken, a woman who kept her bills paid, her face steady, and her man close. For nearly a decade, she gave him everything. Yet on his wedding day, he gave her nothing. No warning, no goodbye, just vows with someone else. Someone younger, someone new. What followed would rattle an entire community and divide opinions across the nation. Was she jealous? Was she broken? Or was she simply exhausted from being used? Where are you watching from? And what do you think makes a woman finally snap? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to Ruthless Realities for stories that will chill you to your core. What really makes a woman break? And how far would you go for someone who drained you and tossed you aside? Stick around, because this story will leave you speechless. She was done with love until he showed up. Atlanta, Georgia, Sunday morning. The kind of morning where sunlight slips through church windows just right, making everything look warmer than it feels. At 56, Celeste Johnson had her life in quiet order. She'd been a nurse at Grady Memorial Hospital for decades, never missed choir rehearsal, still ironed her Sunday clothes on Saturday night, and tied faithfully every paycheck. She had been married once in her 30s, a good man, God-fearing, steady provider, but he left her with a broken heart and trust that never fully healed. After the divorce, Celeste never remarried. She poured her energy into work, her church, and the small corners of life that didn't hurt. Her home was paid off, her car dependable, her savings untouched. But deep down, she carried loneliness she never admitted. Not to her sister, not to the women at Bible study, not even in prayer. Strong women didn't complain. They just kept moving. Every Wednesday, Celeste volunteered at a free health clinic downtown. She checked vitals, organized charts, and kept order when younger nurses got overwhelmed. It gave her purpose and a glimpse into a world far different from her own. That's where she first saw him, Marcus Reed. He walked in with a slight limp and a mischievous grin. Just 22 years old, smooth brown skin like polished mahogany, a thin mustache that barely connected. His scrubs hung baggy, his name badge crooked. He wasn't a doctor, not even a nurse, more like a floater called in when needed. Yet something about him stood out. Bold, yet broken. He reminded Celeste of the sons she once dreamed of having before her body betrayed her in her 40s. They literally bumped into each other by the supply closet. She apologized. He chuckled. Don't worry, Miss C. I don't break easy. That smile lit something in her chest. Over the weeks, their paths crossed more and more. He called her Miss C. She called him M. They joked, talked, laughed more than she had in years. Marcus told her about his life. How he was trying to get into nursing school, working nights at a warehouse, delivering food on weekends. His father had died young, leaving his mother to raise 4 kids on food stamps and prayer. He was drowning in debt, but determined to rise above it. Celeste listened, and for the first time in years, she felt something stir. It began small. She'd bring him home-cooked meals during long shifts, fried chicken with rice, mac and cheese, banana pudding. Then came the little things, a gas car when he ran dry, a new stethoscope when it broke, a textbook he couldn't afford. Marcus never asked. She simply gave. One rainy Friday, his car broke down in East Point. He didn't know who else to call. She didn't hesitate. That night, after she drove him home, something shifted. He didn't head to the guest room. He went straight to hers. It wasn't planned, but it didn't feel like a mistake. For Celeste, it was permission to feel again. For Marcus, it was security wrapped in comfort. Their secret love grew quietly. She was 56. He was 22. She could have been his mother, but instead she became his world. By spring, he had moved in. She added him to her cell phone plan, helped him fill out financial aid forms. To outsiders, he was her tenant. To her heart, he was everything. Love will make you forgive things, overlook things, pay for things you never thought you would. Celeste had always been careful with money, never spoiled herself. But with Marcus, something told her to give. The first big sacrifice was his student loan, nearly $19,000. He said it was holding him back from finishing school. Said he wanted to be a nurse like her. She didn't hesitate. She wrote a cashier's check. Next was a car. His old one died on the freeway, and she couldn't stand the thought of him riding MARTA in the Georgia heat. She bought him a used Honda Civic. Nothing flashy, just reliable. Then came tuition, supplies, application fees. Celeste covered it all. She even converted her guest room into a study space so he could focus. Her sister wasn't convinced. You helping him or raising him? She asked. The question stung. Friends whispered. Church members gave side eyes. A co-worker teased. You building a man from scratch now? But Celeste believed in Marcus. He wasn't a project. He was her partner. Or so she told herself. Marcus knew how to say the right things. He held her hand, called her my queen, left sticky notes with I love you scribbled in bold ink. He'd whisper, nobody's ever cared for me like you do. And Celeste melted every time. But slowly, things began to change. He started disappearing for hours, sometimes days. He'd claim he was studying with friends or visiting family. He stopped answering texts right away. His phone stayed locked. When she asked questions, he'd kiss her forehead and say, you know I love you, right? And just like that, her suspicions were quiet. Still, her heart noticed things her mind tried to bury. Designer sneakers she hadn't bought. Long absences he couldn't explain. Nights where he lay beside her in body, but not in spirit. She told herself he was stressed. He was young. He'd come around. Because admitting he was using her meant admitting she had been used. And that truth was too heavy to bear. By the time Marcus turned 31, he and Celeste had lived together for 8 years. They were no longer new lovers, but routine, familiar, established. She had watched him grow into a confident man with credentials and ambition. Despite his flaws, she still saw the boy from the clinic, the one who once smiled shyly and called her his queen. So when he came home one day and said, Babe, I got offered a job in North Carolina, Celeste froze. North Carolina? She asked. He nodded, eyes lit with excitement. They're opening a wellness center in Charlotte. They want me on the training team. This could take me to the next level. Celeste smiled, but inside her chest tightened. It wasn't just a new job. It was distance. It was change. A quiet goodbye dressed up as opportunity. Still, she didn't question it. She never wanted to be the reason he missed out. So she helped him pack, rented the moving van, even drove him to Charlotte herself. She paid his deposit, co-signed his lease, bought him furniture, a microwave, a king-size bed, everything he needed. She even covered a $4,500 cosmetic nose surgery he claimed would make him look more professional on camera. When he sat swollen and sore, she was there with frozen peas and Tylenol. She kissed his forehead and whispered, You're going to be even more handsome, baby. Just don't forget me when you're famous. Marcus chuckled. Couldn't if I tried. But slowly he did. The first few weeks after his move, things felt normal. He called her at night, sent pictures of his office and his morning coffee runs, texted Bible verses, and left miss you queen messages. But by the second month, the tone shifted. The calls grew shorter. The texts became fewer. Sometimes nothing more than a thumbs-up emoji. The energy was off. Celeste would ask about his day. He'd shrug it off with busy. She'd ask when he was coming home. His answer was always soon. But soon never came. By the 4th month, she was the one calling more than he was. Half the time, her calls went straight to voicemail. When he did answer, his voice sounded distracted, like his mind was somewhere else entirely. Sorry, C. Things been hectic out here. Work got me stretched thin. I'm still adjusting. She told herself she understood. A young man in a new city, adjusting to a new job, it made sense. But that didn't explain why he no longer said I love you, or why his tone carried no warmth when she called, or why he never invited her up to visit, not once. Every time she offered, he had an excuse. Place is a mess. Schedule's too crazy. You wouldn't enjoy the weather this time of year. Still, Celeste held on. She wired him money when his rent fell short, sent groceries through delivery apps when he claimed to be too tired to cook, mailed him a new laptop for his online courses, paid for car repairs, even covered therapy sessions he swore he needed. She gave without question because this wasn't just love. This was her investment. She had built this man from the ground up, and now she was watching him slip away. One night, she sat at her dining table with her phone in hand, staring at the blank screen. It had been 4 days since she heard his voice. She called straight to voicemail, texted no response. She waited an hour, then texted again, just checking on you, baby. Let me know you're okay. Love you. Nothing. That silence hit different. It wasn't the silence of a busy man. It was the silence of a man who had stopped trying. Her sister, Yolanda, came by that weekend and found Celeste still in her housecoat, sipping cold coffee. You all right, see? Yolanda asked. Celeste nodded too quickly. Marcus been calling? Celeste forced a smile. He's just been working a lot lately. Yolanda folded her arms. You still sending him money? Celeste looked away. Baby, he gone. He just didn't say the words yet. But Celeste couldn't believe that. She refused to, because if she did, then what would the last 10 years? A mistake? A transaction? She told herself he just needed space. Time to adjust. Room to breathe. It was easier than facing the truth that he had already let her go. A few weeks later, she wired him $500 for a conference trip. He never said thank you. No call, no text. She convinced herself maybe he was tired. Maybe his phone broke. Maybe he was struggling and didn't want to burden her. But deep down, she knew better. At church one Sunday, she couldn't focus on the sermon. The preacher spoke on discernment, knowing when to hold on and when to let go. Her heart pounded, but her hands stayed folded in her lap. She wasn't ready to let go. Not yet. That night, she called him again. Straight to voicemail. She texted. Read. No reply. Still, she sent him $150 for groceries. Still, she prayed for him before bed. Still, she checked his Instagram every night just to see if he had posted anything that reminded her he was still hers. He never did. You can break a heart quietly, but when that heart loved loudly, it never shatters in silence. It started with a scroll. Celeste sat at her kitchen table, lukewarm coffee by her side, staring at her phone the way she had every night for months. She opened Instagram, not to post, not to like, but to look, to check, to feel close to someone who had drifted far. She typed in Marcus's handle. He hadn't posted in weeks. No surprise there. But then something different. A tag photo. A rooftop bar in Charlotte, glasses raised against the sunset. Marcus stood in the center, his arm around a woman Celeste didn't recognize. She was young, curvy, light-skinned, with honey blonde curls tumbling over one shoulder. The tag read, Candace Lace, event planner. Celeste clicked. The profile was public. She didn't mean to scroll, but she did, and what she saw shattered everything she thought she still had. Marcus appeared in photo after photo. Backyard cookouts, game nights, beach trips, holding hands, matching outfits, smiles too wide, too real, captions filled with inside jokes and hearts. One video clip made her hand go numb. Candace panned a camera across a dinner table, laughing, with my person. The frame caught Marcus pulling her close, pressing a kiss to her forehead. Celeste's breath caught. She stood up, phone still in hand, and drifted into the living room like her body needed distance from what her eyes had just seen. Her Marcus, the man she clothed, fed, built, the man who called her queen and slept beside her for 8 years, had asked for space and filled it with another woman. The next day, she called him. When he finally answered, his voice was casual. Hey, C, what's up? She didn't ease in. I saw your photo. A pause. Photo. You and some girl. Event planner. Candace something. He cleared his throat. Oh, that? Nah, she's just a friend. You know how people tag you and stuff. Are you with her? Celeste asked, her voice flat. Marcus laughed, short, nervous. See, come on. You know I wouldn't do you like that. You know you're my girl. But the words felt hollow. He didn't sound nervous. He sounded rehearsed. Celeste didn't push. She just ended the call. But the damage was done. Doubt had taken root. Weeks passed. Celeste became consumed. Every spare moment, she checked Candace's page, refresh, scroll, refresh again. She started screenshotting posts, saving dates, comparing them to nights Marcus told her he was working late. She wasn't searching for proof anymore. She already had it. She was building a case in her mind, in her heart. One night, Candace went live. She danced in a silk robe, laughter spilling from the screen. Then Marcus appeared shirtless, slipping behind her, kissing her shoulder. Celeste hurled her phone across the room. The screen cracked. Her heart already had. A few weeks later, she opened her mailbox. Bills, coupons, and one cream-colored envelope with gold script. She almost tossed it aside until she saw the names. Marcus Reed and Candace Lace. Her hands shook as she opened it. A wedding invitation. Join us in celebrating the union of Marcus Reed and Candace Lace this October in Charlotte, North Carolina. The venue upscale. The design elegant. It was real, not a rumor, not a guess. And worse, they had used her address. Old billing information, probably from a shared credit card. A mistake, but one that felt like the universe mocking her. Celeste sat on her porch steps and stared at the invitation. He hadn't told her. Hadn't even bothered to lie about it again. He just moved forward quietly, erasing her from his life like she was nothing more than a phase. That night, Celeste didn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling. 10 years. She had given him a home, erased his debt, loved him when he had nothing. She even fixed his crooked nose. And now he was marrying someone else. Someone who hadn't struggled with him. Someone who got the finished version while she was left with the scraps. The rage didn't come all at once. It came in waves. First, she wept. Then she sat in silence. Then she wept again. Then came the remembering every lie, every excuse, every time he took her money and gave her silence. So she began documenting. She dug through old emails, receipts of the U-Haul, the Charlotte lease, the nose job, tuition payments, credit card bills. She opened her banking app. Over $140,000 gone in 5 years. All from Marcus. And now she wasn't even worth a phone call. She opened a notebook and wrote his name at the top of a fresh page. Beneath it, she listed every broken promise, every date, every lie. This wasn't just heartbreak anymore. This was betrayal, public betrayal. He had used her love as a ladder, built his future on her loyalty, and then cut her out of it. Celeste created a burner Facebook account, typed in Marcus's name, typed in Candace's. She watched every post, every countdown to the wedding. She never commented, never liked. She just waited. She watched like a detective, like a woman betrayed. Celeste studied their happiness as if it were a film she was never cast in. But she wasn't done yet. Stick around. Because when love curdles into fury, there's no telling what comes next. A heart doesn't just break. It detonates. 6:12 a.m., Atlanta, Georgia. She didn't eat. She didn't cry. She didn't pray. Celeste Johnson grabbed her keys, picked up her bag, and stepped into the quiet morning like someone walking toward her own funeral. The sun slid through the trees, striping gold across her windshield as she drove. Her grip on the wheel was tight, her face still. Charlotte, 6 hours away. 6 hours of silence, of breathless thoughts and boiling memories. The voice inside whispered, after all I gave, he left me for her. But she said nothing. She just drove. 11:49 a.m., Charlotte, North Carolina. The estate looked plucked from a magazine. Stone pillars, a courtyard fountain, gardens lined with white roses and fairy lights. Soft music floated through hidden speakers, drifting on the breeze like a soundtrack for someone else's dream. Celeste sat in her car for 20 minutes, watching. Guests strolled toward the garden arch, laughing, sipping champagne. When she finally stepped out, the valet didn't question her. She blended in black slacks, a cream blouse, pearl earrings, wide-brimmed hat, oversized sunglasses. A purse clutched at her side as if it carried her soul. Inside, it almost did. She walked in unnoticed. Another nameless guest. She chose a seat 3 rows from the back, angled perfectly toward the altar. The sun lit the aisle like a stage. Celeste sat still, breathing evenly, waiting. 12:30 p.m. The ceremony begins. A hush fell as violin sang. Her eyes locked on the man at the altar. Marcus Reed, taller now, bearded, wrapped in a cream tuxedo that shimmered under the light. He laughed with the officiant, shook hands with groomsmen, winked at someone in the front row. He looked like he belonged here, like joy had been earned. Her stomach twisted. He didn't forget me. He erased me. Then came Candace Lace, veil cascading over slick back hair, her gown stitched tight like a second skin. She walked slow, eyes fixed on Marcus as if he were her forever. Gasps and camera clicks followed. Mothers wept. Children clapped. Celeste didn't move. Her hands rested in her lap, fingers curled around cold metal. The vows began. Marcus held Candace's hands, voice steady. I promise to love you, honor you, protect you, to walk beside you all the days of my life. Celeste had heard those words before, not at a wedding, but on a couch 8 years ago, when he convinced her to co-sign his lease, when she paid his debts, when he swore he'd never leave. And here he was, leaving again, 12:42 p.m., the shot. She rose quietly. Shadows shifted. Heads turned. In one motion, her hand slipped into the purse. The crowd hesitated. Gesture? Joke? Then they saw the gun. One shot. Marcus jerked, his hands clutching his chest. Red blossomed across his tuxedo like an angry flower. He collapsed. Candace screamed. The violinist dropped his bow. A child wailed. Chaos cracked the silence. Celeste didn't run. She walked slowly down the aisle as guests fled. Chairs toppled. Phones recorded. Parents shielded their children. She reached Marcus's body, knelt beside him. His gas rattled, his eyes wide. Blood spread beneath him. Celeste touched his cheek and leaned in. Calm. Measured. I told you I'd never let you leave me, she whispered. Candace shrieked for help. The officiant crawled away. Sirens wailed in the distance. Celeste stayed still, sunglasses pushed back, eyes dry and unblinking. No tears. No anger. Just a gaze that looked at him as though she were watching a man become a memory. When police arrived, she was waiting. The gun lay gently in the grass. Her hands folded in her lap. She didn't resist. Paramedics rushed Marcus, but the blood moved too fast. He was gone before he hit the ground. Candace's scream shredded the air until they sedated her, her white dress smeared with his blood. The world reeled. A woman, dressed like somebody's godmother, calmly killed her ex-lover in front of hundreds. Candace shut down her business, deleted photos, issued one post the next day. He didn't deserve this. No one does. I just want to wake up and find it's all a dream. But it wasn't. That night, Celeste Johnson was booked. Mugshot taken. Orange jumpsuit issued. She spoke to no one. Didn't ask for bail. Didn't beg for a lawyer. Just sat in herself staring at the wall. 6 months later, the world's eyes turned to courtroom 2A, Mecklenburg County. The trial of Celeste Johnson was the state's most watched case. The gallery brimmed with reporters. Families divided across the aisle. The air hung heavy, like a storm waiting to break. Celeste entered in a navy suit. No makeup, no jewelry. Stillness in her eyes. She sat beside her attorney, looked at no one, not Candace, not the judge, not the cameras. Miss Johnson, how do you plead? The judge asked. Celeste rose slowly, hands folded. Her voice was calm. Guilty. A gasp rippled. Her lawyer didn't blink. He'd known. The judge leaned forward. Do you wish to make a statement? Her lips parted, gaze drifting past tears, cameras, faces. Then she shook her head. No, Your Honor. No apology. No explanation. Just silence. The prosecution went first, painting her as cold and calculated. Not heat of the moment. She planned it, drove 6 hours, carried a weapon, sat among guests, and pulled the trigger on the happiest day of his life. They held up photos of Marcus at the altar, videos of the moment she stood, and played audio from the 911 calls. He turned to the jury. She wasn't heartbroken. She was entitled. She believed if she couldn't have him, no one else could. That isn't love. That's obsession. Candace Lace sat in the front row, tears streaking her face as she tried to hold herself together. Then came the defense. They didn't deny the facts. They didn't beg for pity. What they asked for instead was understanding. Celeste Johnson is not a monster, her attorney began. She's a woman who devoted 10 years to a man, Marcus Reed, a man who lied, used her, drained her finances, and left her with nothing but broken promises. He took her time, her money, her loyalty, and when he was done, he discarded her like trash. He showed the jury receipts, bank transfers, emails, text messages. Marcus asking Celeste for money, for help, for sacrifices. She paid his tuition, his car note, even his medical bills. She co-signed loans. She helped him build a life. And when he had all, he replaced her. No goodbye. No thank you. Just a new bride standing in the future Celeste had built. This is not justification, her attorney said, his voice steady. But it is context. Emotional abuse doesn't always leave bruises. Sometimes it looks like silence. Sometimes it looks like gaslighting. Sometimes it looks like 10 years of giving, and then watching someone else live the dream you sacrificed everything for. The testimonies followed. The prosecution called Candace Lace. She walked slowly to the stand, dressed in black. She never looked at Celeste. Her voice trembled, but her words cut sharp. She destroyed my life. I love Marcus. We were supposed to begin forever together. Now I can't even say his name without falling apart. I wake up screaming. I can't attend weddings. I close my business. I don't sleep. She stopped, trembling before she added. She didn't just kill him. She killed who we were supposed to be. I hope she rots. I truly do. She stepped down without glancing back. Then came the defense's witness, Celeste's niece, Malika Johnson. Early 30s, poised, deliberate. She looked straight at the jury. My aunt was a good woman. Church-going. A nurse for nearly 40 years. She cared for everybody. Never in trouble, not even a speeding ticket. She lifted a stack of receipts and photographs. She gave Marcus everything. Paid off his debts, washed his clothes, put food on his table. And while he lived under her roof, he was texting other women. Her voice cracked. I'm not saying what she did was right, but I am saying she broke. And if you've never given everything to someone just to be discarded like you never existed, you don't get to judge her. The courtroom fell into a silence so heavy it pressed on every chest. 3 hours later, the jury returned. The verdict wasn't a surprise. Life in prison without parole. Celeste Johnson stood quietly as the judge read the sentence. No tears, no pleas, just the same stillness she'd carried since that day. Her lawyer offered to appeal. She declined. The courtroom emptied slowly. Some wept. Some sighed in relief. Candace said nothing. She simply held her mother's hand and walked out without turning back. Public opinion split wide open. Some called Celeste a cold-blooded killer. Others said she was a woman destroyed by betrayal. But none of it changed the truth. Marcus Reed was gone. Candace was broken. And Celeste was erased. Candace moved back to South Carolina within weeks. She shut down her business, deleted her social media, stopped answering calls. Months later, one post appeared on her account, a black screen with 5 words, "Still trying to breathe again." Celeste's Atlanta home was sold. The proceeds covered her legal bills. What little remained went into state escrow. Neighbors said the movers came quietly. A truck, a handful of boxes, a life packed away. Inside prison, Celeste kept to herself. No interviews, no phone calls, no visitors. Malika came once. Celeste told her not to return. Ain't no use watching somebody fade, she said. And slowly she did. They say love makes you blind. For Celeste Johnson, love made her deadly. This wasn't a crime hidden in the shadows. It unfolded in broad daylight, under string lights and wedding vows. One bullet, one choice, a lifetime of consequences. Celeste Johnson didn't look like a killer. She was a nurse, a churchgoer, a woman who wore pearls and prayed before dinner. But something inside her had fractured, and when she looked at Marcus Reed beneath that altar, she didn't see a groom. She saw Betrayal dressed in a tuxedo. Some insist Celeste was a predator, possessive, controlling, unwilling to let go. Others argue she was a victim, used, manipulated, abandoned after pouring a decade into someone who never loved her back. Maybe she was simply a woman who gave her heart to the wrong man and didn't know how to take it back. Over 10 years, she gave Marcus everything. Her time, her trust, her money. She built him a future brick by brick. When he left, he didn't just walk away. He left her hollow. That doesn't justify her actions, but maybe it explains them. This case forced the world to ask hard questions. Where's the line between heartbreak and madness? When does love become obsession? And when someone takes everything from you, what pieces of yourself are you still responsible for? Marcus Reed was buried with white roses and navy ribbons. Candace returned home a bride without a husband, carrying a grief that would never fade. Celeste disappeared behind steel bars, reviled by some, pitted by others, remembered by all as a warning. Some stories end in silence. Others echo forever. This one still echoes. What do you think? Did Celeste Johnson go too far? Or did Marcus lead her on until she broke? Comment below. If this story made you think, made you question, made you wonder, what would you have done? Subscribe for more gripping, real-life stories that challenge everything you think you know. Because in the end, truth is always stranger than fiction. Join the journey. Hit that button and be part of the next stories. This is Ruthless Realities. Until next time.